Denise and Gilda, I want you to understand that today is a very informal discussion where we will talk about our stories. It's about empowering the next generation of amazing women. It's about the philosophy of She for She. But before I do that, some words about the Global Institute for Peace Studies with the University of Sao Paulo. We want to thank the University of Sao Paulo for their endless support. We want to thank the State Prosecutor's Office for the support. We want to thank all our other sponsors who are listening today, the leadership of the University of Sao Paulo, the leadership of the Global Institute for Peace Studies, especially Professor Gerson Damiani, who makes this all possible. Now let's kick off with informal introductions. What we decided to do is this. Normally when speakers are introduced, let's say at in-person conferences, they get these resumes. I can guarantee you that most speakers end up being unhappy with how they have been introduced because it's formal and the audience actually doesn't find it very interesting. So we have decided that we will be introducing ourselves. Since this is an hour of women empowering women, most of the listeners today want to learn about who our speakers are and why they are where they are and the how and let's say the W's. So what I will do first is I'm going to give the floor first to our friend Denise to share a little bit about who she is, what she does, her work. Then I will give the floor to Gilda, and from there we're just going to flow into a conversation about women empowerment and the She for She. Denise, over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you. I am in São Paulo, Brazil. I have been an entrepreneur and also an executive in the corporate world for more than 40 years. I ran my own company when I was in nowadays, I am a board member. So I switched from the corporate world, being an executive, to be a board member since 8 years ago. So my main career was in consulting. I was a partner in Accenture. That is the leading consulting company in the world. I've been a partner there for almost 15 years. I was a partner in Bain & Company, that is a strategic consulting group, also multinational. I have been there for 5 years. And I went to be a board member when I was in my 50-something years, because I didn't want to do the amount of traveling that I used to do. Being an executive, I flew internationally once a week, which is crazy. Thinking that we are in São Paulo, so to go anywhere in US or Europe or Middle East, it's at least 12 hours. So being a board member in family companies and also in listed companies in Brazil gives me the possibility of being more home. I am a mother of 2. I have twins. Now they are 29 years old, 2 boys. And that's it, more or less, the introduction.
Thank you so much, Denise. I would think, regardless whether we have children or not, the whole idea of flying every week internationally, unless you're made of steel and you're Iron Man, or we can separate like in a Harry Potter movie, it's daunting. I think one blessing of the lockdown for some has been that we don't have to get on planes all the time. However, if you're a mother, this is really the downside of being in the international arena. So full sympathy, very impressive, everything you've done. I think there are a lot of listeners who want to know how, right? And that's where we're going to get into the lessons learned. So we went from Bahrain to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and now we're going to Mexico, where Gilda is. Gilda, over to you.
Yes. Hi to everybody. Thank you for having me here. So I'm Gilda Dincerti, 45 years of work in the industry, mainly in the life science arena. My background was statistics with a master in cybernetic, so something very, very strange at the time. So for finding a job, I always worked in the IT. IT field was easy also for me to find a new job. So when following by Harvard was a researcher. So I spent some years in Canada, Montreal, where I got another master to McGill University, and then back to Europe in Spain, where I spent 6 years of my life. In the middle of the 90s, while I was IT manager of a pharma company, I discovered the idea that made me an entrepreneur. It was a new subject that was starting in the world. So I had the idea that it could be my new job. I have 3 sons, 3 boys. I hoped for a daughter, and in the end, at least I have a granddaughter that I love dearly. So it is very interesting to speak about how we are professional and mothers, because this, I think, is the real challenge.
You know, I just come to the conclusion that we're all mothers of sons here. So none of us have been blessed with daughters. I definitely wanted to have a daughter, and I told my son, and so we got Sammy, who is turning 10, and he's upstairs and he wants to be a YouTube star. So I really had to make him promise that he's not going to interrupt, because he wants to be on YouTube, because the new world is people want to be vloggers and influencers and YouTubers, and basically the Kardashian dream, which is incomprehensible to us. Now, I really want to note that you said, you know, it's good that we're talking about us being mothers. What I've seen is that sometimes women who are in certain professions, right, that could be male dominated or that are international, that require, you know, incredible dedication in terms of hours, that they are what we call mothers in the closet. So I actually have colleagues in Mexico. One of them is a leading arbitrator who has also a son, also same age as my son. And she said, you know, I'm coming out of the closet. I share the fact that I'm a mother. I'm not going to hide that. What I think was a bit of a culture that has been fed globally is the idea that as women, we operate on the work floor. We kind of hide the fact that we're also trying to manage motherhood, even often in the way we dress. We want to, you know, not stand out in a certain way. And then we think we're going to be treated equally. Now going from that topic of equal treatment, I mentioned when we were discussing today this event that I attended with United Nations Women to launch a Global Women Empowerment Award, where the floor was given to a CEO of a leading corporation who talked about how hiring more women actually is a sound business decision. It is good financially to hire more women. From that, the conversation went to, do we need to have a special setup and facilities in order to create a positive work environment for women, as in we would need nurseries and play halls, and it's almost like we're a disabled species. That was the second question, like what do corporations need to do to hire women? And from that, the conversation went to, is there still a gap in pay? Do men and women get paid the same? And there's this sort of nuanced area of, well, maybe on paper we all get the same salary, but how about bonuses? How about making the ask? So Gilles, I want to stay with you for a second. When it comes to women and men on the work floor, in your view, do you think that in terms of compensation, we have achieved parity, we have achieved gender equality?
So I think we already discussed about this. Looking at, I'm the founder and owner of Pharma Quality Europe, which is a consultancy services working all over the world. And the people working with us and for us are people with a high level of education. So we are speaking about engineer, physics, degree, biology, and chemistry. So in this arena, I'm speaking about a very specific arena. I think that in principle, there are not official discrimination, okay? The point is that in many cases, women are not tough enough, are not brave enough for having their merit recognized, okay? So there is not an official discrimination in general, but it may happen that men are paid more than women because they ask for more. Okay, so I think that there is a male bias, but there are also many women bias. Okay, for a woman, it's difficult or more difficult to go to her boss or the HR manager asking for an increase in salary due to something she's doing. Okay, so I think that the difference in this level of education, of course, I'm not speaking about blue collar or other stuff, are mainly due to the fact that many women don't have the same attitude as men. Okay, but provided they have provided that they are available for giving the same amount of work with the same level of quality, I think that they can achieve the same salary.
Thank you, Gilda. It's really interesting. We should actually pay attention to the male bias and the female bias. There's a bias maybe towards women operating under a certain presumption that women would act or deliver in a certain way, but then there also is the bias that we could have. It could also be culturally determined as to whether we would make the ask. So in the United States, one would say you simply have to make the ask. Whereas, for example, in certain European countries, that would be highly inappropriate. But there is a lot of op-eds out there where authors or experts say, without really any empirical research, that women are not inclined to ask for something. What is said often is they expect or hope that they're going to be noticed, and that if they put in the work, somebody will come to them and will reward them. And that's just not the reality of life. If you're going to sit behind your desk hoping to be noticed, that's not what happens. And it could very well be that most women feel uncomfortable making the ask or standing up for themselves. But at the same time, for example, in the United States, if as a woman you would say, listen, I want my monthly compensation to be this, or when I'm going to be added to a team to work for this client, I want, as let's say, a success fee, 20% of whatever the profit is. When a woman puts her fist on the table, often she is being perceived as aggressive or angry. At the same time, the fact that there are some male CEOs thinking that what we bring to the table is soft power, that sets us back too. So with that, I want to go to Denise. Denise, actually 2 questions for you. One, do you agree with this view on sort of what causes the gap in pay? And is it just in the bonuses or what we have to ask for ourselves? Or is there actually data available that shows that a man and a woman in the exact same position are just different when it comes to sort of the salary scales? That's one. Then second, I would like to go from there to, which I know you have, the data that proves that if you hire more women or you get more women in the C-suite, it is actually a financially sound investment. In other words, we are a good investment. Denise, over to you. I don't know if it's my audio, but Gilda?
Yeah, it's me. Ah. I was saying that I think that the universities are a different arena from the enterprises, the market, the companies, because in companies, really this equality in salaries does not exist. The gap is huge. It's not Brazil, it's worldwide. It's around 20 to 25%, and lots of consulting companies like McKinsey, did these studies, and McKinsey releases this study every year or every 2 years. So who would be interested in the topic can research, can Google McKinsey and the gender pay gap, and they explain country per country what happens. And sometimes people say to me, oh, you know what, women get less money because they are into the humanities fields, and men are into the technical fields. So there are more women in being professors or being teachers, and more men being executives and being engineers. That's not the case. What we are saying here regarding gap is same age, same company, same level, different salaries. Please do not compare apples and oranges. We are comparing apples and apples. And I can tell you from my own experience, I was already a partner in Accenture. I was in my middle to late 30s. I did 50% of the income that Accenture had in Brazil. And one day I discovered that I had the least compensation. So I was very angry and I fought for that. And what happened is that the people in charge think that women do not want or do not give enough importance to having money, because there is this very old perception that women works for their own little stuff and the men are the ones that support the home. And this is for centuries. This is very old information that keeps in the unconscious bias of men and women. So when we want to fight for the unconscious bias, we have to work with the women, as Judah said, and we have to work with the men with power. There is a very interesting study from Catalyst. Catalyst is a big organization in US that studies the inequalities everywhere. And they say that unless you have 30% of any minority, being women a minority, that we are not a minority in the word per se, but we are a minority with power. So if we do not have 30% of any minority with power, the whole way of living of that minority in this group do not change. So if we want a company to really change and be good for women to work, we should have 30% of women with power in that company. If you look at the whole working environment in companies, maybe you find more than 50% of all workers being women, but you find 4 or 5% of women with power, being in the C-suite, being in the boards, or being in C-levels. So unless we reach the 30%, that's why there are so many initiatives called 30% Club, 30% anything is the way to put more women with power. Also from McKinsey, there is a study saying that if we just close the pay gap, meaning women and men having the same compensation everywhere in the world, we would increase the GDP of the world in 28 trillion. 28 trillion is 1.5 United States. So we put 1.5 United States in the economy if we just close the pay gap. So this is the last study that went out last year from McKinsey. So the pay gap is huge. What we can do to close it, there is one time, a president of a big company asked me, oh, Denise, what I can do to close the gap? I said, you are the president. You just go there and sign that every salaries and every compensation, every bonus, everything has to be balanced. You cannot promote only men or give bonus only to the men. You have to have all this. And I did it when I was an executive. I was a very activist for the women causes for many, many years. And I wanted to see what was going on at the end of the year when we promote, when we give the bonus, to see if there was a balance, because it's not possible that we have only women that do bad work, that performs badly, and only men that performs good. if this is the case, we should fire the hiring department because they hired bad women and good men. So regarding the pay gap and the numbers, there are so many things out there that shows also that women bring diversity to the ideas and to the table. Can you think of a cosmetic company run by white male, where the population is 50% women and the cosmetics is mostly for women, and a great majority in Brazil of women are Black? So how you can have such a company? I'm not talking about the steel company, I'm talking about a cosmetic company. It's very interesting that we still have in Brazil the biggest cosmetic companies, all male, white male dominated in the C-suite and in the board level. So what can we do? We can have the power people, the top people, the presidents, the C-suite deciding to do something different to have more women going to have power, because they bring different perspectives, they bring different ideas, they bring different vision. So of course the results of the company, if they think of the consumers in a broader manner, they are going to increase their revenues, they increase their sales. There are tons of research showing that. The problem is who wants to see that. I'm just closing my saying now to say, can you imagine somebody with power willing to give the power to somebody else? Power does not want to give power to somebody else. They want to keep the power. So as women, we never had this amount of power. If we do not fight, if we do not ask, we are not going to be given power for free. So I think there are two ways of closing this gap. As Gilda was saying, women wanting and fighting to be there, and who is in the top understanding the business reasons and the business advantage of having more women with power. I think it's both ways. And I'm not saying here that the women that do not want to have power have to. No, you do not have to. But we have to have the good possibilities for the one that want.
Thank you. Old school professor, it took me some seconds to unmute myself because I just am that old, not old, but mentally old with devices. I love this, and we're going on to more of a philosophical path here. I think that also when we say, and you know, Gilda, you've mentioned it before, there's a bit of a question of our own responsibility, right? There is, yes, the power is with the men, and there is gender inequality, and there is a pay gap, but there's also what is our attitude. We need to stand up for ourselves. We need to make the ask, and then there is, do we want it? And so this is a bit where we get into sort of we are addressing the elephant in the room, which is some might say, women don't want to be in the C-suite, or women don't want to become partners at big firms, or women don't want to own their own companies. There are two rebuttal arguments here, and I'm sorry, I'm going lawyer mode, but one is many of us still, and we're having different generations at the table. Giovanna, who's been helping us, is 17 years young. So there are lots of women in their 20s, hopefully attending, who think that we're, relics. But many of us, not myself included, but many women also don't have role models. So if let's say your mother was not a career tiger, or your mother's friends, or even your peers, or women who are, let's say, 5 or 10 years older, if you don't see a face that looks like you, then where is that inspiration? So sort of to digress, I have been doing work with Howard School of Law in Washington, which is defined as a historically Black university. And I was working with Judge Gabrielle Kirk McDonald, who said about the position of people of African-American origin who want to break into the world of international law of disputes. She said, civil rights are human rights. That's part of international law, and we need more people of African American origin who become part of that society. So she was the first female African American federal judge in Texas, and then went on to the Iran U.S. Claims Tribunal. So these were her statements. So I meet with the students, and I said, well, why are you not interested? Because this was the thing, Denise and Gilda, they did not want to study international law and specialize in international disputes. And then they said, well, because we don't see anybody who looks like us. In my firm, I met with someone who had been with the firm for more than a decade, and her male peers or her male juniors were just bypassing her, getting promotions left, right, and center. And she wasn't. So then you can say, well, there is no pay gap because let's say she is a director, the other directors get paid the same. But if you look at the number of years that she had worked there, she should have already received 5 promotions, which obviously also means a increase in salary. And then she said, well, my mother did not have a career. And I did not grow up with that idea of women being able to, climb that ladder. So there is a little bit of, who is our inspiration? And then second, when we say, women need to want it, and a lot of women don't want to become a CEO because they are also mothers and their wives. And sometimes I feel, and maybe it's my Dutch bossiness, that sometimes we need to tell our younger mentees, you know what, you don't know it yet, but you do want it. Because here's what I think. We women do a lot of unpaid work. I think I've done so many projects and positions and functions and conferences and book projects and God knows what have you, entirely unpaid. It took a client, to tell me, wow, you are an amazing civil servant. You are traveling the world teaching judges for free, right? My dear husband said, if you don't get paid, or you don't get paid enough, it means that people don't take you seriously. So sometimes when you say my hourly rate is X, or my fee is going to be this, you also demand the respect. So we do things for free. We maybe think, or we have that little voice telling ourselves, well, we won't make it to the top. We won't become a CEO. But I think the minute you start to believe that you can, you will want to have it. And so with that, I want to give the floor to Gilda, because Gilda, you've said very inspiring things about, women need to change their attitude. So what I want to ask you is a bit about yourself. How did you get where you are? And how can women change so that finally they see it becomes a possibility for them?
Okay, so following up on the lead, on the path you started, I think that it's very important to start with the family and the school to teach young girls and later on women that they are not different from their male counterparts, okay? And of course, in my case, for example, my parents were both physicians, they were both working. So I really, while you were speaking, I was thinking to myself, there has never been 1 second in my life when I thought I was less than a man, or I could not do what a man was doing, okay? So I think that this is a very strong message to give, okay? And about the C-suite, it's true that maybe not many women want to go in the C-suite, but because they don't like the rules for staying there, okay? So sometimes when we speak about the numbers, when we speak about percentages, I ask myself, but do we want really to be there? Okay, so I think it's not just a matter of numbers. It's a matter if once we are in the C-suite, we can change the rules of the game. Okay, so I think that on top of the financial advantage that could be to have more women in power position, there is the huge, enormous advantage for the companies and for the community, the world communities, that my hope is that having women in the power position could change the quality of life, okay, could change the quality of the working place, okay. So I think that this is a revolution that would be as important as equality, okay. The fact that women can give a different taste to the way of the working life, okay. So, and in a sense, going back to your question, this is what I've tried to do when building my own company. I started to be an entrepreneur rather late, so when I was already 40, I had been an executive as IT manager in different companies. And as I said, I started by chance, in a sense, because I had the insight that a new field in the arena of quality for life science, which was just starting at the beginning of the 90s, it was quality about the IT field in life science could be a good business. Okay, so I started briefly working for a company that in the UK was doing this kind of stuff, and I started my own company in 98. We started 5 people. We are now 1,000 people working from Japan to US. So what I'm trying to do in my company is to have, let's say, really different rules, okay? When I say different rules, one very important thing, for example, which is connected also with motherhood, is the flexibility in times in the matter of the working time, okay? Because I think that being a mother give you an added value to a company, because if you are a mother and a professional, you have learned the hard way how to organize yourself. Okay, so I always say there is nobody as organized as a working mother. Okay, having said that, of course, if you have to stay 12 hours, always the same 12 hours, it is impossible to create a synergy between your family and your professional life. So I think that one important part is this one. So, for example, to allow remote working, not just because of COVID, but because it allows to have added value from more people. It's less costly, it's more ecological. So this is a small things. Also, the fact that having let's say the best team, I think is a mixed team, a team where you have men and women, okay? Because we are equal, but we are very different in terms of how we think, how we attack a project and the problem. So the synergy of the two type of people, let's say, make the work better, make the working environment less aggressive. So I think this is the added value that women may bring to the companies, and more and more I hope that this will happen in my company.
I love it. I'm going to leave this discussion we're having today feeling just more happier, I guess, and energized, because listening to you, the way you put that, my parents were physicians, and I just never thought I was going to be less than a man, almost moves me to tears, because coming from the Netherlands, I did not even know what feminism was until I moved to the United States. When I was in law school, I don't think any of us girls thought we were less than the boys. But then I realized that in other countries, even in, I guess, the supposed leader of the free world, women are programmed to think that they are less. So it really is parents also very much doing their job. And we don't have daughters, right? But we can definitely teach our sons just that. We can raise our sons to be feminists. Mine is definitely one of them, wanting to work for United Nations Women, and will immediately admit that the women are actually superior. So he's also very smart. Second, I love the fact that you decided, and again, by the way, being 40 is very, very young. I now understand that the girls in their 20s think that once you hit 40, you can just plan your own funeral. But girls, listen, your 40s is absolutely the best. But to say, this is very inspiring, because to say, I'm going to now make a huge switch and start my own company, that's just fantastic, because it shows everybody, it doesn't matter where you are in life. If you want to make a change, you jump and you do it. And then to get to over 1,000 people so that you can be in the C-suite and change the rules, that's the magic, right? I think when you talk about the rules, it's Sheryl Sandberg who says in her book, we need to lean in. And then somebody like Michelle Obama disagrees with her. And I would then agree with Michelle Obama, like, why do we have to lean in? And that's a sort of abstract position to take, because what does that mean in daily life? Does it mean we have to lean in and work harder? Do we have to compromise ourselves as mothers and as women? Do we have to dress differently? Do we have to be soft with soft voices, like, Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice type of being? So what are the rules exactly? But I guess one core rule is that you have to put in the hours, which again brings us back to this practicality of women who are mothers. You need to be there. You have kids. Now, I once had a debate with another lawyer who is a close friend of mine, but I tried to make the point that it's hard for some women to make themselves available, let's say on a Saturday, because we have kids and we need to do things for them, and we have to, put our boundaries in place. And then he said, wait a second, whether you're a mother or a father, you're both parents and you both have children, and it's entirely the same. So the assumption was both fathers and mothers have the joint responsibility of childcare. I dare to be controversial and say this is just not true. Culturally, globally, in this day and age, the sort of burden of childcare still very much falls on the mom's shoulders. And so we are simply not always available. So if there's a woman in the C-suite who can say, I'm going to create a environment that allows women to work from home, that allows a mother to take her child to the emergency, that allows a mother to pick her child up from school, I think we would all agree with each other that little thing that seems so mundane of picking your child up from school, it is the happiest half hour of my day to get my son from school. It's where I bond with him. So it is very important for those who create the rules to just acknowledge exactly what you say. We are 100% equal, but we are very different. And I think also from the point of view of children, because we sometimes forget, children are born and they don't ask for anything. So if I would ask my son, do you want me to pick you up from school? He will want me to pick him up from school. Okay. So I think changing the rules is really important. Now, Denise, you've been in consultancy and you have now, you're your own boss, but when you worked with extremely impressive consultancy firms known the world over, and there are probably a lot of students and youngsters who want to work at these firms. I've had friends who were with Bain and Boston and McKinsey who ultimately did not make partner because it was so hard to combine with a family. So I would like to ask you what your experience in sort of big consultancy has been, and if you were, what would you say to those people in the partnership? How can they change the rules?
Well, I was thinking while listening to you that all you were saying for me, maybe I could summarize in if you have the freedom to be yourself, you can do amazing differently things.
Oh, you muted for a second.
Yeah. So I say, if you have the freedom to be yourself, you can change the rules of the workplace. You can be yourself and change the way that you are perceived and how you give results where you are. So everything. You can dress the way you want to. You can create the rules for the workplace to be a better place for people to work. I think that the real magic here is that if you can be yourself, and if you have the freedom to be yourself, then you can make a different workplace. But how to have the freedom to be yourself? If you enter in a big consulting company, as you were saying, if you do not dress as everybody else has dressed, if you do not behave in the meetings as everybody else behave, if you do not go to the client say the very thing that everybody else says, how can you be yourself? I can tell you, I have always done it my way. I never dressed the way the others dressed. I never behaved in the meetings. I never hired people to be in my teams as the others hired. I had a completely different way of working, which is amazing if I think it right now, because I had this power within me. Nobody gave me the power. I have the power. And over time, I found out from where this power come from. I always had money. I have a mother that was, my mother never worked out. She was always a housewife. My father was very authoritarian. So my role models is my mother telling me every time in her life, go have your money to be free so you can do whatever you want. This is my mother's mantra up to today. And I heard it and I started working very early. But besides working, I always asked for the money that I deserved. I always spent less than what I earned. I always invested the difference. So I always had money. And what I found out in the women's life is that women normally do not have money because women earn less than men. Around 20 to 25% the whole life, spend more because they take care of others, around 20 to 25%, and understands nothing about investment. So if you earn less, spend more, do not invest, and have to live longer, because women live longer than men in general, around 10 more years, your life is poor because you do not have money put aside. If you do not have money put aside, you are always afraid. You are afraid to ask for a raise, so you are going to be fired. You are afraid to not fit with the outfit. You are afraid of putting a new idea in the workplace. You are afraid of hiring whoever you want. You are always afraid of losing your job because you do not have money put aside. I always had money put aside. Since I was 12, I did handwork and sold in the school and had this own little money. I gave private lessons to my neighbors and I had some money and I put aside. So I always had money. So I listened in the workplace, wherever I want, in the consulting companies mainly, they said, you do not need to work. That's why you do whatever you want. It's not that I do not need to work, but it's true. I was not going to starve if I lost my job. I never lost my job. On the contrary, because I was so free to do whatever I believed. And I am a smart person, so I didn't do crazy stuff, but I do different stuff. And then I had always wonderful results. And with wonderful results, nobody can fire you. They don't dare to fire you because you are different. They have to eat whatever you do and make a good face. So if I can say something, look for your freedom. And freedom comes with having money invested, your money, not your husband, not your father, not your money. If you have your money and if you have 2-3 years put aside so you can dare to lose your job, you are going to do different and good things for your team, for yourself. So I was always seen as somebody that was not, after 15 years partnering in Accenture, Marieke, I also listening from the people that said, you do not look like an Accenture person. I said, good. I'm happy that I do not look as an Accenture person. But I always had tremendous results. The clients love me. The teams, I without making the addition, I always had 50-50 teams with power. I had 50% directors, 50% managers, without saying I will hire a man or hire a woman, but my view was a balanced need, and the client loved it, and we had tremendous results. The more result I had, the more things I could do. I remember once I said, we are in a very difficult project. Nobody has time to go to the hairdresser. I invited the people to do nails inside the office. So we had hair done, nails, etc. inside the office. Nobody could say nothing to me because the project was wonderful, on time, making money. So the more freedom you have, the more you can do things that really make business and life sense. So if you need to go to see your kid, if you need to take your kid to I never missed anything of my kids in school or doctors or anything. Girls, I have to tell you something. Make money, have money, so you can do whatever you want with your agenda, with your kids, with your life. It's not true that going up in the ladder, life is heavier and more difficult. It's the opposite. When you are down the ladder, people do your agenda, say what you have to do. When you're up in the ladder, you can do whatever it makes sense for you. You do your agenda. So it's not true that it's harder. It's more responsibility, but not harder. So we have here a question that I said, if you are poorly paid, how to save money? So people, the money life is not how much you earn, and it's not how much you spend. It's a composition of earning more than what you spend. If you are poorly paid, you have to spend less and invest the difference. You say, oh, but I get so little. I want to get more. Good. Make plans to earn more. You can. I always worked 2 terms. Up until I had my twins, I always had 2 jobs, a day job and a night job. I gave classes in the night. I did consultancy, freelance work in the nights. So if you want to earn more, you have to work more and work smarter and ask for what you are giving as a result. As Mariki was saying that she worked a lot for free, do not do that unless you are 60-year-olds as I am. And now I can give my permission to work for free for NGOs, whatever I want, because I already have my financial life figured out. But if you are 20, 30, and you want to do a difference in the world, and you want to save, I don't know what, and you do not have money for yourself, it's like being in the plane and not putting the oxygen mask on you before putting in the others. It's very important that, Celia, it's not... everybody can increase what they earn and can decrease what they spend and can learn something about investment. You need to want it. If you do not want it, it's not going to happen. But if you want it, you are going to happen. I have tons of examples. I can give you, if you want, go to my site and see the interviews of people that I do regarding money. I am a digital person. I am a digital engineer, but I always wanted to put in the minds of the women this thing about money. So I wrote a book. We created an NGO called Mulheres do Brasil that we are almost 80,000 women now. And we have a group there to be role models for the women that want to progress in the careers, want to go to the C-suite. And all the idea is that you have to have freedom.
Thank you. And also, I think it's, again, it might be a generational thing as well. I speak to young women who are still in high school who dream about, you know, the Kardashian life, who want to be influencers and social media stars and YouTube stars and be in that world where you wear a thing and then you make so much money. Come on, wake up and smell the flowers. Those who are on the call right now, now I'm in a glorious position where I take on certain work by big corporations and I charge them a lot of money. And then I have other time where I say, this is really my passion, like women's rights and UN Women and teaching. And they're, you know, they cannot pay me, so I can do that for free. And on the long term, I can monetize on, let's say, the books that I write. But that it took me 20 years to get to that position. When I was in my 20s, I worked at a law firm. The law firm pays me, and I work day and night. Okay. And this is something that young people need to understand. You have to earn it. You have to put in the sweat. You have to spend those years behind your desk. You have to study hard. Things don't happen overnight. And today people live in this fast age where things have to come immediately. And even those people that you see on social media that are super famous and influencers and God knows what have you, they work day and night. Elon Musk says, I work 7 days a week, 24 hours for the last, I don't know how many decades. So, you're seeing 3 women on a call being where they are, but rest assured, we've, now is the good time. But my God, I think we've all done those all-nighters and have done things that, we were totally overqualified for. So I want to give the floor to Gilda, getting to the women empowering women, she for she. We're getting to the biggest elephant in the room, which is, I think we all have those experiences to share that it was a woman who really put us down. I talked about that in my TED Talk, the women backstabbing each other, the queen bee syndrome. The minute there's one woman in the C-suite, she doesn't want to let the others in. The things that women have done to each other. We all have those movies of, I don't know how she does it, The Intern, The Bad Moms, where you see that famous scene, and it's in so many movies, where the school moms are standing there as the brigade waiting for the working mom to just mom shame her like it's 1999. We have the women on the work floor who, like we just said, make remarks on what you wear. God knows what have you. So it's time to break that cycle. And so now the question is, what can we do or not do to help each other? And with that, I want to give the floor back to Gilda.
Okay, so my answer will connect with what you have said before me. So I think that money is important, but it's not only a matter of working more hours, but it's a matter of thinking more. Okay, so I think that especially people with low salary don't have time to think enough, okay? Because maybe there are many new ideas, many innovative ideas that they could have for changing changing their work, doing something new that through which they can earn more money, okay? And in this, I think it is mandatory to have strong programs of continuous education, okay? Which, for example, I had the experience in Canada. In Canada, all universities have a continuous education program for people working during the days, while in Europe, especially southern part of Europe, it's not so common, okay? So I think that education, formal education about a new subject, and one of them could be how to make your own investment. It's mandatory for changing the world, okay? And for changing also the mentality of women that try to push down other women. It goes back to the idea I spoke some minutes ago, which is these women are mimicking men, okay? These women are playing a game which is not the women game. It is an old male machist game, okay? So my message is women have to play their own way, have to be themselves, and to change the rules in the society and in companies in a way that also be very beneficial for men, okay? Because the flexible schedule is a huge benefit also for my male employees, not just for the female employees, okay? So I think we need more women believing in themselves, forgetting about what the men examples they have in front of them, and going their own way, playing by heart, following different rules, being innovative and creative. And this is something that normally comes easier to women than men to be creative, I think. So I have a question from Roberta, the founder CEO of a corporation. What are the main challenges you face regardless of gender? For those of you who wish to open their own business. As I said, maybe I don't know if I was stupid or didn't understand the risk, Roberta, but really, I don't think that there are more risk to be an entrepreneur for a woman than for a man. Okay, there is a risk in business, and of course, you have to take them. Okay, when you are an entrepreneur, many nights you don't sleep because you have to pay maybe salary to your employees and you don't know why. But it's not a matter of being a man or a woman. Okay, women are as good as men. Sometimes I think they are better than men in many aspects. And in entrepreneurship, it's perfect for us because going back to the mother subject, being a mother is to be an entrepreneur because you have to organize the life of your family. You have to know the schedule of everybody. You have to shop for everybody. So, I mean, we are trained to be entrepreneurs since we are very young. So I think that you have to study to get the new ideas, to stay online, to stay tuned about what could be the white horse coming, crossing your road every day or in the future.
Thank you. It is now on the dot, and we had reserved 1 hour for this conversation. There's so many other things that we wanted to talk about. What I take away from this is incredible advice, incredible mantras, inspiration. I'm energized, but I also realize that it's so important to have mentorship. In law and international law, we've created worldwide mentoring programs. I think that what is so incredibly essential is for women who have already advanced in their careers to set up these sort of mentoring groups, or in an organic way mentor the new generation of women, because these things that we're discussing today that I think seem very obvious to the three of us, nobody gave me this memo when I was in law school. And then some of us are lucky to have mothers who are an inspiration. So my mother was a career tiger and fearless, and in that she made me fearless, but a lot of women are not that blessed. So what we will do, this has been live streamed on YouTube. We will keep this interview or this conversation on She4She on the YouTube. It will be on the GLIP website. You can find us also on social media, on Instagram, glip.uspi. And for those who still have so many more questions, you can send them to us over social media. I know that YouTube has that chat. Sorry, I'm going old school again. But anyway, there's this chat thing under that you can ask all sorts of questions and put in comments. And we will keep an eye on that so that we can answer any other questions we have. This is the kickoff of many more of these types of conversations with amazing women like Denise and Gilda. We will have more of these chats so we can figure out how to change the future. And with that, I want to thank Denise. I want to thank Gilda. You're both amazing women. It's a real pleasure to know you and to be part of this tribe. And with that, we're signing off for the weekend. Good day.
Bye.
Good day. Take care. Thank you.
João, pode interromper a transmissão, por favor?